Welcome to Auntie K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hello and welcome to Auntie K's Tarot. So today I am excited to share with you my newest deck that's coming to Kickstarter, and it is the Marseille Prendre Vie. There's a lot of noise next door. I don't know if I can do anything about that. We'll see. Okay, so I am keeping the artwork, but I'm changing how it's laid out on the box, and here's why. I really struggled to understand the graphic setup of the box because it opens sideways, and that it makes it so much easier to open and close. So what I am going to do with that is place this in a horizontal presentation. This part will stay the same, but I'll put by Auntie K's Tarot down here. I will redesign this layout so it is like writing pictures. And there were spelling mistakes on here anyway, so the box was getting edits. But I really like how the box is actually designed. So let us get into the deck. So it has this flap that folds in, and I don't know, it feels pretty good, pretty sturdy. This is actually a copy I'm sending to reviewers because I already used mine and it's out of order, but I will use my copy of this to show you how it shuffles. Okay, so there is a printer's card that comes with it from the shop, which is Drive-Through Cards. There is, so this was one of my many back designs that I didn't go with. So I just used it for the QR code card. And so this takes you to a PDF link, which is currently up, but in its first edit form. And there will be an audio link, which is ready by the time the Kickstarter is done. Let me make sure I don't have it upside down. I do. Okay, so these are my card backs, and I love them. I think they're gorgeous. I sometimes really struggle to tone things down and keep it simple, but I'm so happy I finally pulled it off, and these are the results. So this is a prototype or proof. There's 6 copies of this version. It is edits already started looking at them. We'll discuss them as we go through. The titles are English translations of the French titles. You have Roman and Arabic numerals. The Marseille border is shown in the white border. The top titles go all the way to the edge, and the edge borders are open. So the Conjurer. I had fun with this card. There was 2 cards I started working on first, and neither versions of them ended up happening, but this is most true to the original version. And a friend got me this picture of this conjure shop, and but this isn't the inside. I took a garden picture and put it through this door and window because of the story I read in the guidebook. And you've seen that part of it if you've seen the video I did talking about card 1 and 2. So then we are in this garden at nighttime. So most of the edits I'm doing are about these misalignments, which in some cases, in most cases, I think is an issue of the bleed edge not being included by accident. So That's what most of the edits are going to be. You know, I enjoyed making this card. Since I'm editing it anyway, you can't really tell, but there's like, it looks like a yolk and an embryo seen through the transparency of the egg. And it, you know, the tones are different in print. Even when working in CMYK on the computer, it doesn't really look like that because of the backlight. So I think that's the only transparency where it needs to be adjusted and come through. And the blue really got lost on here. I might brighten it up. The Empress. I was really proud of how my amethyst turned out. One of my friends thought I had copied and pasted a picture into it, and no, I drew that, and I was really happy how it turned out. And definitely being able to zoom in on the computer and work in this super small scale but in larger form is how that worked. The Emperor, there's details I really like you know, the helmet that the Emperor is wearing in the traditional Marseille, it does kind of look like a toque. I changed the cross scanning the land into a cross beam scanning the land, things like that. This is the face of the Emperor in a traditional TDM deck. So that was also fun to take his face and put him into this whole modern scene. People are in awkward positions in the Marseille deck, and it definitely made it hard to recreate positions because people who are sitting, you can't sit them and still have them proportioned in the card that way. So that was a fun ordeal to work with. I think my Pope was probably the most awkward person in this whole card, and let's call that religious trauma. I was working on this card when my hard drive crashed, and you know, I had to redraw cards. And he still looked kind of awkward, but I was like, this is me, this is my religious trauma. He's staying awkward. I looked at like how the people were designed in the Pope deck and what they were describing, and then like looked up outfits for those, you know, that translate today, because their outfits change very slowly, but they do. And so, and then the Popes, I just sort of created my own Popey-ish thing based on that. A stained glass window made the most sense for the Pope card. They still got things like the blue hand in that. And the swirls on their heads, they, you know, the one goes in one direction, the other goes in the other direction, the swirls in their hair. I redid that. So the other main edit that will occur is, as I did the art, I improved how I highlighted and shaded darker skin tones. And so looking back through and having hints as to what the differences might have been, because it was sort of a natural improvement, I'm going to re-highlight some of the darker skin tones, such as on the Lovers card, because I definitely got better at highlighting darker skin tones, and I can see it when it's in print. So that's something I am updating. And see, it's better in this card, just because it's not as dark. So, and also it seems to depend what shades and hues I was working in as to how well they stood out. So I also know what hues of browns will work best now. So learning curves. reds and oranges weren't working, yellows and blues, yes. So that's part of what I learned. And yeah, so this is my Justice card. I did enjoy thinking about this one. I'll read the entry for it. You are surprised to see Justice sitting on the communal bench when you arrive. Classic sword in hand. So they've got a pink manicure that matches their outfit. It's like a coral pink. And it is here under the card. Their hand comes under the wheel, the way you'd hold a skateboard. And the design on the skateboard is the hand and the sword from the traditional Marseille that's drawn the same. So classic sword in hand. Still trying to balance the scales with the tools on hand. So we've got some tools we use for tightening your trucks on a skateboard and stuff. This isn't the Emperor's justice, but this justice has plenty to say on the matter with equal decisiveness. You're sure justice has opinions on the power behind the chariot. With justice present, you know the battle has come to an end, and even if the war has not. But the scales remain trying to balance. The ground our justice stands on is uneven, but the task is the same. A just outcome is to be fought for, and an answer, like it or not, is coming. On the streets, on the pipes, even in front of the bench of the Emperor's justice, you learn to state your case clearly, carefully, showing respect for the laws justice stands for. That, in knowing justice's sword, drops quickly. All said, you're a brighter member of this neighborhood for the lessons you've learned at this half pipe. And I base the justice on the All-Femme Indigenous Skate Collective of Bolivia, Emilia Skate, and so that's what I wrote for Justice. I think it translated well, and she's probably one of the ones where like I had to push on the boundaries harder. A lot of the times the cards, you just chose the right words. You didn't have to push the boundaries of the card very much. The Hermit. I remember reading a line about the hermit looking for humans or looking for humanity, and it stuck in my head. And so when I came to do the Hermit card, I reached out to my friend Muhammad Abdu, who wrote the book Islam and Anarchism, and it was like, you are the hermit. And you know, so I wrote this, and he looks like a hermit, right? Like, this is him, his clothing, like, he's just very hermit. This evening you come across the hermit. The hermit meets all expectations, beard, long hair, wizened and studied. It is clear by his clothes, social expressions of our identity, that the hermit is fed up with the norms of society. You wonder if they were rebellious in their youth and what they know now. Instead, you ask the hermit, are you looking for something? That felt so lame. I'm looking for a human, replies the hermit. I've just come from the city ahead of you. You nod wisely, for certainly few of us resemble what our ancestors would have called humanity. The hermit knows of wonders and terrors you haven't imagined. He seems to allow spirit to guide his emotions. As you leave, the hermit remarks, I searched for the answers. I found the answers, and now I search for humans. I saw and I turned back home, yet I remained focused on the journey alone. You head off towards the city lights and fireworks lighting up the night sky ahead of you, and head to the city the hermit came from as they were looking for humans. And I like how this idea of the hermit looking for humans when he's coming from the future direction into the past in this deck, so coming from the cards you're about to see, and then we see cards that, like, you know, aren't all that human for the first time in the next few. So this is the city of Montreal, and you know, this card is, it looks like it's on the water, so Montreal's an island, so that was easy to pull off. And these are sphinxes, and I made them more sphinx-like than in the deck, because in traditional Marseille it's like isn't a sphinx, so I made it more sphinx-like. The wings look like more like a cape in the traditional deck. I made them wings, and then I did wing outlines on these two. And it talks about, you know, one being gold. I went with the greenish gold, blue, and flesh colored. And so we have a brown flesh instead of a white flesh. My Chihuahua and my cat are playing at the moment. That is not aggressive puppy sounds. She's not actually a puppy, but, you know, she's a Chihuahua. So then you come to strength. And this is also a card I'm reshading, most especially because the shading standing out was important on this card, because the strength is wearing a breastplate, which you can tell when you can tell that it's not shaded like flesh the way the flesh one is, the way their actual flesh is. So she's getting a reshading also. All right, might redraw the hands. I got a bit better at hands. I've always struggled with hands, but I got better at it, or better at learning to take pictures of my hands a lot of the time, and to see how it was going to look and sit. So, you know, in the strength card, it looks like the lion is growing out of their groin. So I played into that, making sure that their other legs lined up to look like they really were like part one and the same with the lion. And then we have the Hanged Man. Some people who are always looking for a way to say something symbolic that nobody knows, but they know this great secret, sometimes those stories are fun, right? So I came across one claiming that the Hanged Man is the son of the Popus and the Conjurer, because 1 and 2, 12, and because the knot looks like an egg. So I made it the Pope's egg, and I put the Conjurer's shoes here, the small detail. They aren't super noticeable. Is there if you want the fun of it. I do sort of reference it, but not in a way, I guess more like I'm hinting at an Easter egg. 12, Hanged Man. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, walking through the woods when you come across a hanged man. It's quite a sight to take in, and your initial reaction of assumed shame surprises you as you wonder what they did to get here. What did you do to end up hanging from the school playground at 3:30 in your youth? To be certain, this young hanged man is a little rough and unconventionally dressed, yet the serenity they exude is clear and spiritual. Your senses have taught you that much on this journey. You wonder if the hanged man has chosen the sacrifice or being sacrificed. The cutting of the tree seems spiritual, tree sap, blood ripe in the fresh cuts of their 12 branches. You feel lacking in your knowledge of the situation, much like you did when you sat at the feet of the Popus. You were struck by the rope the hanged man is hanging from, the strength of their immobility dangling precariously by the foot. Your mind wanders to the phallic and egg shape of the rope and knot and the Popus's egg. As you leave, you notice the hanged man's discarded shoes in the shadow of a tree, rather fine shoes. Whose are those, you ask? I borrowed them from my father, replies the hanged man, resigned to your accusatory question, although I won't have much use of them now. A little embarrassed that you still don't know much and did nothing about the situation of the hanged man, you carry on. And then we have a death, and you know, we got Lizzie and Chuck's heads down here in Death's field. It comes for them all, and we have a field littered of the hands and feet and bones of discarded lives. And, you know, death has a purse. And because the rich, they pay with the lives of the world majority to extend their lives. Wealth buys health. It's just how it is. So that's in this card and description. The flower in Temperance is pink. I faded it in towards green in the center, and it's a nod to the wearing of green flowers. So my decision to do this, you know, how do you show variation in gender and orientation and things like this? Well, how do we show that in our regular everyday lives, right? Often in our clothes. So you'll see it in t-shirts. In the past, there's been hankies, and at one point, you know, green flowers. We have the devil, and I really like the idea that, like, you go into the knowledge. The torch represents knowledge. The devil looks like they're waving at you. You know, this scary card. Everybody actually looks pretty welcoming and inviting. So I had fun playing with that. And I don't know if I want to read you all the good parts in here or if I want to leave them for everyone to discover. The Tower, what we often call the Tower card when we're coming from an RWS perspective, is the House of God in the Marseille. And I keep calling it Tower, but I did title it the House of God because it worked with my imagery. So I chose for my House of God a bank. And so we have the $ for the S there. And this is the banking headquarters of one of the big banks in Canada. It is the Royal Bank Plaza, which is the headquarters for the Royal Bank in Toronto. There's Wonder Bread here. I redrew these flames over and over, and after at one point I like blanked out everything I'd drawn and got down to like where I'd shaded it. I was like, oh, the shading, and I just left the shading that I had done. That was how that turned out. And the star. This is one of these cards that I think just came out really beautiful, along with the moon. The dark backgrounds just look great. They really pop. The blue on this pops so much better than it did on the screen. It's one of the things where the color, I think, came out more intense, and I really like it. This Easter egg is more, for the few who will know, it's Victor and Thomas from Smoke Signals, which is a classic movie in the Indigenous world, and they're the imps here. It looks like the ones in water and the ones in dry land, and some descriptions talk about that. So I got them on the dry land, and I drew their daughter, their grandpa, in the sun face. I really, as we talked about my Pope card issues, was like, what am I drawing for judgment? And I was not into drawing, like, you know, some super, like, biblical angel, except actually it's not really a super biblical angel, it's just a super Christian art angel. So my release from that was to go biblical. It was like, you know, giant wings that, can create storms and hundreds of eyes and beaks, and they're creepy. And so I went with that, and then I gave it a bit of, cultural flair and used owl feathers in owl irises, but not owl eye shapes. I changed it just a bit so you're not looking at like multiple sets of actual owl eyes. But it still looks like owl eyes, so it's creepy, and I love it. And I love owls, but it, a lot of our beliefs around death became hushed and taboo and scary because of colonization and Christianity. But they're not. It's the Christians with the scary ass angels. In the world, I added in the constellations. And like, this refers to Aquarius, but it's an angel. So I changed it to Aquarius, the water bearer. And I didn't change this to Scorpion because because eagles also actually represent Scorpio as well as scorpions, because they do also look like an eagle. So that worked. If you're new to Marseille, the Fool's unnumbered. It can go at the end of the major arcana. I put it here, and that definitely worked best in the story too. A mistake in design became a thing to leave in design. After I drew it and placed it, a friend was like, that telephone pole looks like, a big joint that she's holding. You should change it. I was like, I should. I was like, no, actually, I shouldn't. I should totally leave it. I'm totally leaving it. I took this picture down the road. Most of these pictures are local, not all of them. And, they have this chained up gate. And so that seemed perfect for the Fool card in the Marseille deck. If anyone has told you what you really would have contemplated, learned, ran from, and overcame on this journey, you'd have called them mad. Yet here you are again deciding, is this the journey I am going to take? Is this the path I have taken? You take a moment to breathe, to feel yourself in the present, to let go of the past, and breathe into who you are. Inhale. Forwards. It is the one direction you can take now. Decisions will be made as you pull yourself together. The past can burden you or it can feed you. And the choice now is to trust that you've prepared and can add what you will along the way. It takes an inner trust of a contrary nature. Either you are crazy or you are correct. But now is the time to believe in yourself and your present at all costs. Exhale. Happy squirrel. You take a moment to focus as you finish slowly releasing your breath. The sun feels a little harsh on your eyes as you focus on something gleaming in the branches of the oak trees. The sun is free of a light cloud, hinting at the potential for the clouds to form imaginations. The sun glints off a shiny acorn, and you could swear you saw that squirrel once before telling fortunes. Something about true love and happiness, but not without losing something you thought you wanted. Ah, maybe that is happiness, or what happiness requires. Now that your sight is a bit more focused, perhaps it was just a squirrel. Regardless, the advice is good just the same. So the face of the happy squirrel card is the face of the fortune teller from the Simpsons episode that gave us the happy squirrel card as an extra in tarot. And I'm not going to be the one reading on the audio file. A friend of mine who's really good at that is going to do that. And then we're into the pips. I love how these backgrounds look. I just do. I love it, which is really why I considered a sky background for the back. of the cards. I am glad I went with this instead. But there you have it. These are the coins. And, you know, I thought about things as, you know, I went around through this, right? Like the Three of Coins is about production and products and things that have been produced. And so I chose roses because, you know, that hothouse rose. And I chose for the Four of Coins, the mandrake, but because of its human form. And the Four of Coins is the most human of cards and experiences, right? It's that pit of our human fears and desires. So mandrake root seemed good for that. And I thought about my sky choices, and so the descriptions of the cards, they reflect that, right? So let's just read Four of Coins. Strong ties and a solid respect for your human-centric desires feels held firmly between earth and sky today. These roots promise to scream an unholy protest for assurance they remain well grounded in the solid and stable structures of the soil. At this time, it is tradition, repeated actions, and institutions that rule the hour. The question is, should they? Dandelions for that disruption, comfrey for that expansion. You observe the tremendous growth the ever-abundant comfrey plant has taken. The comfrey leaves fill every possible space, making sure to spread their abundance elsewhere. The feeling this brings seems to light the sky before you from the bottom up with assurance. Your confidence leaves you feeling generous. You promise yourself to hold this before you in the future. Night blooming jasmine and a full moon sky seemed appropriate for a card that thinks about work and regulation, and part of regulation is timing, right? So that was the reference there. And then, you know, a bunch of the scene flowers all together in that, you know, abundant garden at the end. This place, it's a pizza and wings place. I've never tried the pizza, but the wings are fantastic. All the appetizers, fantastic. So, you know, this is a sport I know nothing about, but it sure looks like polo player with a big stick looking at a round coin. So that's where I went with there. This is one of my favorite cards. And the King. Ace of Cups. I broke with tradition here. I really did. This vessel holds the essence of life which rises from the waters, yearning for the heavens, swimming in ecstasy, reaching spiritual awareness, all flowing out of a cup which appears to each and every artist as their own understanding of the sacred. This art is then shared with the world to become cultural icons. This chalice holds all human hope and fear contained and transmuted as spiritual. This vessel contains magic's blessings and covenants to believers and life, H2O, to all who live. So that's how I resolved, you know, the cathedral, explaining every artist sees that as something different. For me, a representation of a god is the earth. So DF, D'Amour flute, and this is the D'Amour coat of arms that goes in there. The teacups, they all have tea leaf readings, you know, rabbits, birth, fertility, home, for the Four of Cups. So see, I have more of these misalignments. Links for Five of Cups, an acorn for that gathering and sharing. In the Six of Cups, the Seven of Cups has a cat for like individuality. And we have a teapot for like gatherings, family, that sort of thing. And we have a bow for, you know, recognition, success, and a lion for leadership. The Page of Cups screams tween to me. Who else is so enthralled with what is in their cup, be it their newly springing emotions or a a unicorn frappuccino that they would trample over a sandcastle. When I saw this on the beach, I was like, that's my Page of Cups. So the Knights, you know, they don't all have horses, but they all have something to go that way. But this one has a horse, and I kept the horse in the colors that it is in the Marseille. And this one, the horse becomes a seahorse. We'll see how that plays out elsewhere. Queen of Cups is Fabula, Queen of the North, a.k.a. Patrick Brant, Mohawk from so-called Ontario. Reading the Tango Makes 3 that, you know, she read at the very first Drag Queen Story Hour ever. That did not happen in California, but happened in June 2015 in Kingston, Ontario, in Skeleton Park. And this is a picture of Skeleton Park where my kids, most of my kids grew up. King of Cups. I had fun making him with his like sunburn and belly and boobs. The Ace of Wands. I'm really happy with how that fit. I think this suit's got like a lot of expression in the skies. I just really enjoy it. It's really sad that this beautiful sky has white line on it. I can't wait for the updates. And they felt like they needed to be really expressive skies for the wands. I think I paid even more attention to the wands than the flowers in I think in the wands I paid even more attention to the sky. Like, it was important elsewhere, but I really wanted it to be dramatic in this suit. So I'm going to put yellow highlights behind these numbers so they stand out better on those darker skies. This is one that looks so much better in print than it did on my screen, because you can see the nice depth in the blue with that like first star and the full moon coming out of the clouds. Page of Wands by an apple tree. I had fun like shading this horse from blue to yellow. Oh, and these cowboy boots, they are inspiration for my next deck, which is the Lenormand that I've been creating in order, starting at number 1, and I'm at card 16, by the way. And cowboy boots are a feature of that. It is the Brown Witch Lenny. Finally told you, it's sort of been a big secret. I am not really going to share images of it while I'm getting this off the ground. So again, you see t-shirts, you know, it's t-shirts tie-dyed in pansexual flag colors. So, you know, ways to hint at our identities. And socks and tie in the King of Wands at the boat launch. This is across from the cabin in Boulder when we stayed in Boulder for 10 months. I think the swords ended up being the suit that I found the prettiest. This card especially. I love how this card turned out. I loved the slight bit of pink in the sky. And I really enjoyed doing this suit since, you know, it's laurel behind the sword. In the Three of Swords, I put the laurel flowers, which are really quite tiny, much blown up in the corners. See, things like your berries, they're there. And I think the skies helped me tell the story of, like, you know, the energy of 5s and 7s, which can be different in a Marseille interpretation, right? Seven of Swords. The Queen's words penetrate deep within you. The cold air clears the sky of all but the thinnest of clouds. Resolve settles over you like a quivering columbine blossom dancing endlessly on its toes. With this resolve, you determine the path through the thicket of swords with sharp logic. Then you make your move without flinching. And yes, it references the Queen's words because you meet the courts throughout the pips. And the Queen of Swords shows up between the 6 and 7 of Swords. Let's do this. All right. The pressure mounts outside the 8 swords, daring you to clear the air. The air is sticky with the spicy scent of currents expanding outside. There is little room left for you to maneuver out of this situation. There's no perfect solution this time. You can call on courage to face the situation to the best of your ability. While you cut back some of the disruption surrounding you, neither side could call this a win. One argument canceling out the next. Both sides are tangled and caught in the defensive nature of conflict. It's hard to reach out in this situation to find an alliance. Doing so seems complex and vulnerable. Eventually depleted, you relent the moral high ground and accept an alliance. So that is the 9 and 10 of Swords. This is the Page of Swords with kitty cats forming non-binary flag on their t-shirt. And, like, this seemed like a good place to have somebody with a crutch because of the, is it a scabbard, is it a sword they're holding on to there. I didn't realize that I showed a number of physical disabilities in the swords. I was thinking about, you know, one of the pages, one of the knights, one of the queens, one of the kings. But when I realized, that's like, I'm not changing it because, you know, they did fit there either visually or card-wise best. So this character's racing wheelchair is in the colors of the horse of the Knight of Swords. And they fit into the card really well in this position. They fit the card in a wheelchair, how they're positioned in the card better than the others. Queen of Swords. She's wearing my outfit, except, you know, I just wear the shirt and the pants. I don't wear sleeves under it because I'm not hijabi. I don't need to cover my arms when I don't wear a hijab. But I really like this outfit. It seemed fitting. So I sat in my chair, which is this chair, but with a lower back, and took a picture of myself in this position so I could get the folds of these clothes correct, because I knew, like, my being baggier, I wasn't gonna do well just picturing it in my head. And then the King of Swords, leaning on the railing of the theology building, the King of Swords has been expecting you. Your heart has been divided between the teachings of the past and the prospects in your future. The king nods knowingly. This is an emotional weight the king has worn on their own shoulders. The spirit of the past and the reasons of the future are not always as black and white as others make them out to be, advises the king. But is the past not looking backwards, you implore? Only if you allow it to, responds the king. The past rests on a shoulder, therefore it faces whichever way we turn. And that is the Marseille Prendre Vie. And I'm going to flip this back into its box. Sorry to whichever reviewer gets one that's been opened to be looked through. But there we go. Okay, so let's take my open deck, and what I really do like this box style. I really do. I went with 320 standard smooth cardstock because, you know what, that classic cardstock, it often shovels like it. I can't bridge cards, so me not bridging cards is not a comment on the cardstock. I can't bridge any cards, but I have arthritis in my 48-year-old hands, and to understand how size my hands, I wear children's size 5 shoes. I wear the children's because they're wider, and I have short, wide feet. So, yeah, I have smaller aspartic hands, and that's why I like linen cardstock, because it tends to be thinner and super flexible. But you know what? Some people love linen, some people hate it. Some people love matte, some people like me hate it. Nobody complains about a standard smooth cardstock in a 320 GSM. You know, it's great that way. It's, you know, the way, like, a Llewellyn deck just shovels perfectly every time, except not Llewellyn size, regular tarot card size. So I'm really happy with this as a choice, and I read with them last night for work, and I really enjoyed that. All my clients got my Marseille deck. Some got it enhanced with, you know, some cards from the Black and Gold Lenormand, and also Sign of the Times Oracle. Justice. So, you know, I have really great hopes for this deck. It was absolutely time for this deck to come and state its case, as Marseille is finally apparently ready to grow out of its traditionalist roots. So I'm happy about that. That feels very much like what's going on here. See you later, folks.